These are the adjust instructions for brewers with a BrewKeg25, our combined conical fermenter and keg. This product allows a brewer to ferment, carbonate, clarify and dispense a beverage all from the one vessel. In this step, we're going to monitor the temperature and pressure during fermentation and determine when fermentation is finished. Then we're going to chill the beverage and perform 2 clarifications. A temperature range between 18 to 28 degrees Celsius or 65 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit will ensure a strong fermentation for all beverage types. If you have temperature control, we suggest you target 25 degrees C or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. You can ferment lagers at these typically ale temperatures, or optionally a little bit colder, 15 degrees for 3 days and then 18 degrees for 3 days. The ideal setup for fermentation is to place the BrewKeg25 inside a fridge with a heat belt and temperature controller to control the temperature at your set point during fermentation. However, as long as you maintain the temperature range during fermentation, any setup will work and ensure fermentation proceeds and finishes before the chilling step. For example, it could be placed in a small cupboard with a small portable heater which has a standard adjustable thermostat so that the cupboard's ambient air can be kept in the temperature range required for the period of fermentation. For brewers using a fridge with temperature control, plug the temperature controller into a wall socket next to the fridge and take the controller temperature probe and place it or tape it to a wall inside the fridge. Then at the back of the controller, plug the fridge into the cooling socket and the heat belt into the heating socket. Then place the heat belt as a loop on the fridge floor and turn the temperature controller on and set the temperature to your target. The temperature controller will now control the temperature in the fridge and turn the heat belt or the fridge on as required. In this setup, you'll be closing the fridge door on the heat belt and the probe cords, but the seals on the door will close around them and keep the inside insulated from the outside temperatures. About 12 hours after pitching the yeast, if you shine a torch on the sediment bottle, you should see the signs at the beginning of fermentation. And after 24 hours, at the top of the sediment bottle, you should see a lot of CO2 being produced by the yeast. And if you shine a torch through one of the viewing ports and look through the other, you should be able to see foam on the surface of the brew. After 24 hours, the pressure will have built up and the beverage is carbonated. Aim for about 1.7 bar or 25 psi and adjust the VPRV to achieve this after 24 hours once the pressure is built up. If you prefer lower carbonation, brew at a lower pressure to suit your tastes. If the pressure is higher than your target, turn the VPRV anti-clockwise, as this will release some pressure. Conversely, if you can hear or smell CO2 emitting out the VPRV and you aren't at your target pressure, then turn the VPRV clockwise a little bit to establish a new set point, then come back in a few hours and check. During fermentation, the yeast eats sugars and turns them into CO2 and alcohol. At the temperature range of 18 to 28 degrees Celsius, 64 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, after 4 days, fermentation should be complete for Williamsworn extracts. If you ferment the lagers colder at say 15 to 18 degrees Celsius, they will take about 6 days to ferment. At this temperature range, by day 3 fermentation will be slowing, and by day 4 it should be finished. There will just be the odd bubble rising. At this stage, the sediment bottle will be showing a decent amount of settled yeast. If you look on the surface of the beverage through the viewing port with a strong torch, you'll see that the foam that was there during fermentation has collapsed to a small amount, about 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch in diameter, with almost no activity visible. Fermentation is officially over when the specific gravity no longer reduces and is constant. If you want to test the SG, attach your draft beer tap to the beverage output on the lid, take a sample and degas it by pouring the sample between 2 glasses. Let the sample warm up to 20 degrees Celsius and then pour the sample into the 100 ml measuring cylinder. Blow away any foam and add the hydrometer with a spin. Measure the specific gravity at the point where the liquid rises up onto the side of the hydrometer. If you need to calculate the alcohol percentage, then a reliable formula is the original gravity, which is the specific gravity in the wort, minus the specific gravity in the finished beer times 131.25. If you feel fermentation isn't finished, just give it an extra day. When fermentation is finished, wind the VPRV right down to its closed position and ensure the BrewKeg25 is put in a fridge or chiller and is set to cold. If you were fermenting in a fridge with a heat belt and temperature controller, change the set point to 1 to 4 degrees Celsius, 34 to 39 Fahrenheit, unplug the heat belt from the controller and remove it from the fridge, ready for the next brew. Or conversely, you can turn the temperature controller off, remove its temperature probe, remove the heat belt, and plug the fridge back into the wall socket and use its own temperature controller to refrigerate the beverage. Wait 12 hours for the beverage to fully chill down. A Williams-Warren cider kit does not need clarification because once it's cold, the yeast should all settle out. So for cider, you can jump to the dispense instructions now. Beer, on the other hand, requires clarification. Firstly, close the butterfly valve above the sediment bottle. Ensure you have your CO2 supply connected to a grey quick disconnect fitting and the pressure set at 1.5 bar. Measure 30 ml or 1 fluid ounce of clarification agent into the dosing device and put its lid back on. Then connect the grey quick disconnect fitting to the port on the dosing device lid. Then press the button on the VPRV to reduce the pressure to be 1 bar, about 14 psi. The pressure will have reduced naturally during the cooling stage as more CO2 gets dissolved, but the principle here is that we need the tank to be at least half a bar lower than what we've set on the CO2 cylinder in order to be able to dose the clarification agent in. Then connect the black quick disconnect fitting to the beverage output on the brew keg lid. As soon as you connect, the high pressure in the dosing device will force the agent down into the line into the keg. Bubble the agent into the beer for 10 seconds. You must hear the bubbling to confirm it's working. Note that the pressure on the brew keg lid gauge will increase as you blow CO2 in. After 10 seconds, remove the grey quick disconnect fitting from the dosing device lid, unscrew the lid and add some rinse water using the 500 ml rinse bottle. Wash down the sides of the dosing device. Then put the dosing device lid back on, reconnect the grey fitting to the dosing device lid port and blow water through the lines for a few seconds, and then disconnect the black fitting and then disconnect the grey fitting. Then put the grey fitting on the gas import on the brew keg lid. The clarification agent will have reacted with haze proteins and yeast, and a new layer will settle down. So now open the vessel butterfly valve and allow the sediment to fall into the sediment bottle over the next 24 hours. Often the sediment will fall into the bottle before 24 hours is up, so the principle here is that you can get on with the second clarification once you see a definite line between the yeast sediment and the beer in the sediment bottle. You will see a new sediment layer has formed above the naturally sedimented yeast, and that in most cases there will be a defined beer line above that second layer. If the sediment bottle looks murky, you can drain some sediment through the bleed valve of the bottle, but otherwise just close the sediment butterfly valve. Then repeat the steps of the first clarification from the point of closing the valve, but this time add 20 ml rather than 30 ml of agent to the dosing device. At the end, remember to connect your gas supply to the gas import on the vessel lid and open the sediment bottle valve. Then wait another 24 to 36 hours and the beer will be ready for dispense. See video 4 for dispense instructions.